What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it is my review of Deadzone Rogue. So this is a game that I really didn't have on my radar at all for 2025. I had only seen this game, I believe, in my discovery queue on Steam, and that was when the game was in early access. But then I was looking for a new roguelite to buy, and I saw this game had just dropped into 1.0, released a big update, officially out, and I made the decision. This game looked really good, had a really good art style, cool setting, set in space, kind of like this cyberpunk style to it, and I made the purchase. And I have a lot of things to say about Deadzone Rogue. This is one that might not be on your radar, but hopefully after this video you'll give it a chance. Check it out and see if it'll be your type of game. So without further ado, let's dive in. So first I want to talk gameplay when it comes to Deadzone Rogue, because it is the strongest part of this game, I believe. The gameplay in Deadzone Rogue is silky smooth. It feels so good. I've played this on Steam. I think it's only on PC, not on consoles yet. Not sure if there's a planned release for consoles, but it is on Steam, it's on PC, and the game feels so good. I would probably go as far to say this is one of the best feeling games that I've played this year. I just, all the time, had so much fun moving around this game. You had a dash, a dodge, but basically your gameplay is you get two weapons. You get a melee weapon, you get a grenade, and then you get armor to build around that. And once you go through a run, you're building up your loadout, getting different weapons, upgrading those weapons if you like the weapons that you have, and the rolls that you get for different stat boosts on these weapons. But you can also swap those weapons out with different weapons that drop on the ground. There are tiers of rarity for each piece of equipment, going from common to legendary. So, you know, green, blue, purple, yellow, that sort of progression that we usually see in like RPGs and stuff like that with rarities. You see that here to upgrade your rarity. You also have levels for each piece of your equipment that goes from 1 to 10. So your maxed out loadout, if you can get to it by the end of the run, is everything legendary and everything level 10, which I have not even gotten to the point where I've had everything legendary yet. I've had, I think, everything level 10, but not everything legendary. So that progression there helps too. But then you also have, what kind of build are you trying to make? Your first loot drop is going to be a weapons cache. So you kind of pick out your starter weapon. Maybe you build around that weapon, or maybe you find a different one. But then each drop after that is going to be your augment. Maybe you get something that is more long range focused. Maybe you get something that's melee focused or hit fire focused. There's a lot of ways to build and play the way you want to play for that run. You don't have to stick to that play style for every run. You can mix and match, and I think that is what a roguelite should do, is give you the freedom and creativity to build your loadout, build the play style, your perks and stuff like that, and play how you want to play. This game does that very, very well. It gives you a lot of options, a lot of different augments and perks. And the weapons, there are a lot of weapons in this game, a lot more than I thought. Off the top of my head, I want to say maybe around 30 weapons, maybe more than that. I don't remember the exact number. There are more primaries and secondaries, but there's a very, very good weapon variety in this game. From different shotguns, you might have a double barrel shotgun that's a secondary, or you might have a plasma shotgun that's a primary. You might have a full auto shotty as a secondary. You have different pistols, sniper rifles. There's even exotic weapons, a few exotic weapons that you get from missions, which we'll talk about a little bit with the progression in a little bit. But the weapon variety is very, very good. You'll find the weapons that you like the most, but there's enough weapons to where I might like different weapons than you like when you go to play this game. Like, for example, the burst pistol I felt was really, really good. I loved using that burst pistol for a primary. I really liked using there's an exotic weapon I won't talk about. You'll kind of see the exotic weapons when you get to it, but there's sniper rifles are really fun to use. The game feels so good that the snipers feel fantastic to use. It feels great to go for headshots and critical kills and hit those weak points. It hits all those check boxes when you're looking for something that has great gameplay. It satisfies with the damage numbers and the way that enemies die. There's a good amount of enemy variety as well. This game does variety for all things so well. Weapons, enemies, build variety. I was very surprised going in. I thought this would, have pretty much, I guess, my expectations going in where it would have 2 times as less stuff as it actually did, which I'm not sure why I came in with that expectation, but I did, and I got exceeded. Those expectations got exceeded with this game. The gameplay feels great. Build variety, like I said, all of it feels amazing. It is one of the best feeling games, one of the best playing games that I have felt all year. Performance was very good. I'd say there was a little bit of drop when, stuff got kind of crazy in very enemy heavy rooms, but the performance would drop, but not enough to really notice it. It would only be when I would look at my frame counter in the top right corner to where I would notice, okay, I'm down about 20 or 30 frames, but I'm not feeling it. And when those enemy heavy areas are done, it just goes right back to it. Same thing in co-op. I kind of felt that in co-op. You can play this game with up to 4 players in co-op, so if you want to do solo like I did for the most part, you can, but I did try out co-op with a friend, and the frames I did see, kind of like with the enemy heavy rooms, dropped a little bit, but not enough to really notice it. But for the most part, I'd say about 90% of the time this game runs so smooth. It feels so good. That also goes along with the gameplay. The performance, 90% of the time, is 10 out of 10. And like I said, when it drops, it's not noticeable really at all. You don't feel it. At least that was my experience with the performance. So gameplay and performance, very, very good. Variety is great in this game. It's got great gameplay. I really enjoyed playing Deadzone Rogue. Let's talk progression. I want to talk about progression while you're in a run, but also progression while you're out of a run, because this is a roguelite, so you do get stronger the more you play. You are expected to die a couple of times. It's not going to be straightforward. You're going to succeed with every run. You're supposed to get stronger, and the failure comes with permanent success. And so in a run, when you go, like I said, you have the different rarities: common to legendary, green, blue, purple, yellow. Each piece of equipment has levels 1 to 10. But when you're going through a run and progressing, you have each piece of equipment, and then every 3 rooms that you go through, or sectors as the game calls them, you run to a safe room where you can use the fabricator. At the fabricator, you can use the scrap that you've collected to buy new equipment. If you want to buy a high leveled gun, or maybe it's a different gun, you don't like the one you're using, you can buy a different one, buy a different melee weapon. You can also buy 30 points of health at a time. So if you're low on health, you might have 1 or 2 health packs you can buy to very slightly increase your health that you have. And then you can also upgrade your equipment while at the fabricator. You can't just go from common to legendary right away. As the run goes on, the fabricator will allow you to level up to a certain level or get up to a certain rarity. So it's not like you wouldn't even have enough scrap after a couple of rooms to go from common to legendary, but if for some reason you did, the game wouldn't let you. It kind of hinders your progress, and it goes up as the run goes on, which I like, because you feel that steady progression. You feel yourself getting slightly stronger as the run goes on, as opposed to going from pretty weak to really strong within just a couple of rooms. So I think the game does a very good job with that. So the in run progression, there's not a lot to it, but it does feel very good as you go through all these rooms, collect scrap, and you also collect tech, which when you're out of a run, whether you finish the run or you end up dying, you do have a station in the hub where you can go and upgrade permanently. So there are 3 different skill trees, and each have, I think, maybe 10 to 15 skills in each tree, to where you can upgrade these skills. And I think there's 8 tiers to each skill. So it is going to take a minute to max everything out. I'm about 14 hours in, and I think I'm pretty close to maxing everything out, but not quite there yet. And I think what this game does very, very well is it is split up into 3 different zones. So zone 1, you just have your basic skills that you can upgrade with tech, but each zone introduces a brand new core feature, which I think is really cool. So when you get into zone 2, you have the, I don't exactly know or remember what the term is for them, but they're like upgraded skills or rare items or something like that, where you have even better skills that you can go and upgrade by getting a different currency throughout the runs, and you upgrade them at the same station. And then when you get to zone 3, you have synergies, where you tie skills and those rare skills together to create one great ability that might give you a stationary damage bonus zone when you spawn in, or it might do who knows what. There's a lot of different synergies. I think there's like 45 different synergies, to where when you're going through a run, you can see what skills tie up with which rare skills, figure out which one would work better with your build, and go with that. So I think the way that the game introduces a core feature for every zone keeps things interesting. It's not like after you're done with zone 1, you go through zone 2 and 3 and it's basically the same thing. You have a whole new system to work with, which keeps you interested throughout that entire zone. So when we're talking progression, that's how the out of run progression works. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and talk about how the game is structured from a mission standpoint. So it does go by missions. So the first zone, I think, has 5 missions. Each zone has its main story mission, which are longer missions than your other kind of side missions, I guess you could call them. So you go through the first mission in zone 1, and then it'll let you go to zone 2 if you just want to go through for the story. But there are 4 other missions that give you some sort of modifier or a different way to play. So one of the side missions, I guess you could call them, is every room has one enemy, but it's a room full of the same enemy. So you could get a room full of the very tiny spiders, or you could get a room full of 5 elite enemies that are all the same. And that keeps the randomness going. That keeps the every run is going to be different with that going on. And then another run, you might use a certain weapon, and it might be snipers only, and you will be fighting long range bots. Or it might be the complete opposite, where it's only melee bots and you have shotguns only. And each zone 1 has the least amount of these side missions. Each zone has more and more of these missions, so there's a lot of variety with the different runs that you can do. And also, there are 5 different difficulties. So even if you go through all the missions on normal, you still have the option to increase the difficulty and try to go for the achievements for doing them all on hard or expert or even nightmare. So there's a lot of game here. If you're really interested in this game, you really like it, there's a lot to do to really get the full experience and 100% it. I think that's great. There's even like horde style missions where it's just wave after wave of enemy and you survive as long as you can survive. You also have customization. There is weapon customization. You do get skins for doing certain missions on certain difficulties. There are suit skins, but there's only the one that you get in the pack. Hopefully in the future we might get some free ones that we can unlock through challenges or missions or something like that. But the way that the game is structured from a progression standpoint and from a mission standpoint, almost like a story standpoint, which we'll talk about the story in a little bit, also very well done. I really enjoyed the different amounts of missions, because there's over 20 missions in the game right now, from zone 1, zone 2 to zone 3. Each have great variety. You unlock these exotic weapons from certain missions. You get to use it in that mission with a certain modifier, and then after you complete it, you will be able to, get that weapon dropped or get that weapon in a fabricator that you can now purchase, which I think is really cool. So progression and missions, customization, it's all done very, very well. One last thing I'll talk about when it comes to everything that I'm just kind of throwing into this part of the video is the hub area. It is something that I wish was a little bit more fleshed out. There's not a lot to do. Like, for example, I wish there was some sort of firing range to where we could test out all these different weapons and maybe get some sort of way to throw like build mechanics in there to where we could test out certain builds maybe in a firing range or something like that. That's just something for the future that could be added. I do wish the hub was a little bit more fleshed out. You only have a couple things you can look at when it comes to, you have that progression station, then you have the multiplayer station, you have the station where you start a mission, and you have a stat tracker, which is pretty in-depth, and then you also have the logs that you can find throughout, which I think are actually pretty cool in this game. It's structured like a social media site, almost kind of like a Twitter, where you see all the logs that you found, and they're kind of set up like tweets that you can read. You can look at a certain person and look at all the tweets that you found from them, or I think the logs, if you're really into the lore of this game, I think the way that is set up is pretty cool. You can change your icon, and I think you can even change like your media handle. I could be wrong about that, but overall I've kind of thrown a lot of things into this part of the video, but it's a lot of things that the game does very, very well in Deadzone Rogue. Last thing I want to touch on is story, because it was surprisingly pretty solid. I did not expect it going in. It's not anything out of this world 10 out of 10, but it is there and it is decently interesting. So before we get into that, I did forget to talk about how I enjoyed the different rooms in the ship. So it does take place in space on this ship, and each room is a different part of the ship, which I thought was a really cool way to have that system going, where one room might be the military corridor, the next room might be the kind of like cafeteria area or something like that. There are different rooms to the ship, and those are the rooms that you fight through during your runs. I thought that was a cool detail, cool way to do that, and to have the variety there with the different rooms that you'll see. But when it comes to the story, it's not told in any grand way. There are really no cutscenes. There might be 5 total cutscenes from what I can remember throughout the entire story, and the entire story takes place through the 3 main missions. You do get some different dialogue every time you might go through a room. For a second or third time, you might get some different dialogue that kind of gives you a little story beat, but it's not really until the 3rd zone where the story kind of picks up and there's a lot there to kind of take in, but it's not told directly to you, which is kind of cool. You'll hear it from a distress call from the CEO of the company, or you'll hear something from one of the crew members, and you're kind of piecing together what's happening as the character is. And the main character, I don't think he has a name. He just kind of spits one-liners, but they can be pretty funny sometimes. He's got a cool voice. Nothing crazy with the protagonist, but the one-liners might be cringy to some, but to me, for the most part, they were, I got some laughs out of it, and it was just kind of there. It wasn't anything offensively bad or anything like that. It was just kind of there. But I think near the end of it, where the story went was kind of surprising to me. It's not my favorite story of the year, but it's a lot more than I thought, a lot more than I was expecting when it came to Deadzone Rogue, and the ending actually gives you some choice, which was very surprising, and I actually enjoyed the ending that I got, and I was not expecting there to be any sort of choice in this game, so that surprised me. But overall, the story is solid. It is pretty interesting, at least to me it was. it can be a little, cliche somewhat, but I think that where the story went, like I said, very surprising to me. Did not expect this game to have a solid story. I just kind of thought the story would be set aside for the gameplay, which is very, very good. And that would have been fine. I would have been fine with that because I was coming in expecting really fun gameplay, not expecting any kind of crazy story, which this isn't, but I did get a lot more story than I thought. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. I know I said one last thing with the story, but there's a couple other small things I want to touch on very quickly. One of those being the soundtrack. I thought it was good for what it was going for. It set in space, that cyberpunk feel, it does do that very well with the tracks that it has. I think there's about 15 tracks, and music is very subjective, so I did enjoy this soundtrack. I thought it was solid, but you might like it more than I do. You can even buy it on Steam if you really want to listen to it in your free time. You can go for it there. I thought the soundtrack fit the game very well, and it does a good job. Another thing I want to touch on is it's not really a negative for the game, but when I think about a really, really good roguelite, like a 10 out of 10 almost experience, I think of the variety and you exploring off the beaten path and finding these small things, little details, kind of like a Hades. I know it's not really fair to compare game to game, but that's just kind of what I think of, and I'm not going to knock it for not having a bunch of variety, but I think this game could be really cool if it had some off the beaten path variety, some cool little details thrown in there somewhere. I'm not trying to be specific anywhere, but I think this is a very straightforward roguelike experience, and if that's what you're looking for, it does a great job at that. And that's kind of what I came into this game expecting, but I think some off the beaten path stuff could be pretty cool, could be done very well. That's just thinking off the top of my head of something to... It's not really a bad thing about the game, just something that maybe they could add in the future with updates, because this game is out of early access. It did just hit 1.0. Maybe some way if they could do that, it would elevate this experience already on top of what's already there, which is great. Just a couple of small things I wanted to touch on really quick before we get to the end of the video. So what is the verdict on Deadzone Rogue? It is currently $25. It is Steam only, I believe. It is definitely PC only. Maybe you can get it on, I think it's only Steam. So let's just say it's Steam only, $25. It took me 14 hours to really feel like, that's when I kind of stopped and started making this review. It doesn't take you that long to go through the story. 14 hours is what it took me to do, I'd say 85-90% of the main story missions, or main missions that it offers you off the bat, playing on normal difficulty. I didn't even experiment with the other difficulties, so it was 14 hours, but really just going through the game and playing each mission on normal. You have the option to do higher difficulties. I didn't max everything out progression wise. I still need to finish out the first basic skill tree, still need to go through and maybe get all the synergies and play around with all those. There is a lot of game here if you are looking for it. If you play this game, go through the story and you're looking for more, there's a lot more to do. If you want to get all the weapon skins, there's a lot to do. So I'd say the $25 price tag, if you're looking for a very, very good straightforward roguelite experience, then the $25 price tag is well worth it. You're going to get your money's worth. You have really great gameplay, a surprisingly pretty solid story, really great progression from in run to out of run, and there's a lot of content here for that $25 price tag. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for a straightforward roguelite experience with very great gameplay, $25 is going to get you that with Deadzone Rogue. I would absolutely recommend it for the price. So that is going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out, and talking about Deadzone Rogue. If you've played the game, let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Good and bad, let me know your thoughts about the game. So that'll do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more. videos in the future, and I'll talk to you later.